Welcome to another episode of Dad Up, everyone. Thank you guys very much for joining me. I'm excited because this is not only another episode of Parenting Pep Talk, where typically it's just me and you. However, I've asked my wife to join me because the topic that I want to discuss today really stems about, well, let me start that over.
Yeah,
It's bad. Why'd you say yeah?
because stems about doesn't make any
It
sense.
doesn't make any sense. Ready? 3, 2, 1. Welcome to another episode of Dad Up, everyone. Thank you guys very much for joining me. I'm excited. This is another episode of Parenting Pep Talk, where typically it's just me and you, but today I've asked my wife to join me because she has been a school teacher for many, many, many years. And I know we are now in summer break for most, if not all of our kids are in summer break right now. However, this is an important topic that I thought would be helpful for my wife to join me and talk about with her experience in teaching. But that's how do we keep our kids engaged in not only activities, school type activities, but also in reading when it comes to the summer break, because a lot of kids go off, play video games, go off, hang out with their friends, sleeping in, staying up late, doing all those other activities, but they're really losing that momentum in their thinking abilities as far as education goes and their school goes. So my wife, Andrea, my queen, thank you very much for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm excited because you are a school teacher. You've been a school teacher for what, 432 years?
Oh, I'm not quite that old.
Oh.
More like 17.
17 years. Okay. So she's been a school teacher for 17 years. And I'm proud to say she has obtained her master's degree in education as well. So she's very educated when it comes to teaching other kids, and her experience goes a long ways as well. And the school that she teaches at, all the kids, including the teachers, but all the kids love her very much and think very highly of her. So I'm proud of that for you.
Well, thank you for saying that.
Yeah.
I don't know how true it is, but thanks for
true.
saying it. So yeah, this is something that I feel totally passionate about because I've been on both sides. I've been a parent struggling to find ways to engage my kids in reading over summer, but I've also been that teacher that, come fall, when we return to school, the kids sit in front of me and say, yeah, I didn't read anything all summer. I just played video games. I just sat around, on the couch, and I see the ramifications of that. So it is something that I feel passionately about and have a little insight into. So a couple of tips that I wanted to share with parents today.
Well, let me ask you this before we go into those tips.
Sure.
I want to stop you right there because I do agree with you. I think our boys were even, I guess, used to that when they grew up, even though having a mom as a teacher, you kept them engaged, but they really wanted to spend a lot of their time, there's no problem with their kids enjoying their vacation. It's their summer vacation. They want to sleep in, they want to stay late. You set the ground rules for that. There's no issues with that. What she's saying is trying to keep their minds engaged in useful activities that will help them progress quicker when they get back to school in the fall. So I want to ask you though, as a teacher, why is it important for us as parents to make sure that our kids are staying engaged, mentally engaged with, educational type products throughout the summer? Why is that important?
So studies have shown that a child who does not read over the summer months loses about a full month of reading proficiency.
Wow.
In that short period of time. And we work so hard and we push them so hard during the school year to continue to increase their reading comprehension levels and their proficiency that it's such a bummer to lose ground. And there's really no need for it when just a little bit of reading each day will have great impacts. And as we all know, reading is the one skill that impacts their ability in every other subject. They have to be able to read word problems in math. They have to be able to read, scientific theories in science. They have to be able to read, stories in history. So it's really the one skill that is going to benefit them across the board.
So you say a month, that's crazy. Now, as parents, I think, okay, a month's not really that far behind, but you as a teacher, you see it day in and day out with students. A month really is quite a bit behind when you lose that momentum, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It is a really big deal. And, we push our kids today, I think, really hard to, stay academically competitive and to stay on top of these skills. And you see the difference as a teacher when you come back to school, those kids who have read all summer long and the kids that haven't. So those kids that have read all summer long, they haven't backtracked. They've continued to progress. So now, that child that hasn't read all summer might have lost a month of reading proficiency. But in comparison to his classmates who have read all summer, he could be 2, 3, even 4 months behind.
Hmm. And then, okay, so great. So let's say you and I, when our boys were younger, let's say we implemented that in their summer, off,
Right,
off,
which I did.
right. That can help them to get ahead as well, right? I
Absolutely.
mean, we're not just talking about staying on task with where their grade level is when they get to that next grade in the fall, but we're talking about if they continue to use their mind usefully with reading and doing, maybe math problems, things like that, that will help them to get to be a little bit further ahead than the
Absolutely.
kids that come back in the fall.
Absolutely. And it's not even academic all across the board, because it's a harder start coming back into school come, late August or, early fall. It's a much harder start when your mind hasn't been active all summer. And for those kids who have sat around and just kind of played video games and not done much to keep their brain active, it's really hard to get back into the swing of things. Whereas those kids who have done maybe just a little bit every day, it's a more seamless transition back into school.
Yeah.
So even mentally and physically, it's a good idea to keep their minds active over the summer.
And I know you're going to go over some tips and stuff on how parents can do that, but you're not talking about, or maybe you are you talking about every single day engagement in reading activities? Or are you talking about, 3 days a week or 4 days a week, or is it just maybe 10 or 15 minutes every day? How does that work?
Optimally, it's a little bit every single day. Again, studies have shown that is the most efficient way to keep a child's mind progressing. And that's true even throughout the school year. It's why most schools and most teachers require some independent reading every day of, 10 to 20 minutes, because that little bit each day is the best way to keep. It's like a muscle. You work out a couple of times a week, you're going to see results, sure. But if you work out consistently every single day, you're going to see much bigger progress.
Right. And then I'm sure that you're also talking about, when it comes to reading, you're also talking about reading at a level that equals where they should be, or even further, right? We're not talking about an 8th grader reading a kindergarten book. That's not, that doesn't equal, or does it?
Interestingly enough, my opinion on this differs from that, standard theory that we should always be encouraging our kids to read at the higher end of their reading level, to push them to continue towards growth. My opinion on that is, if you can get them to read, get them to read, whether it's in their reading level or not. Obviously, that is the most important.
Yeah.
But at the same time, reading is reading. And I can remember as a kid, I was an avid reader. I loved to read, but there were books, as my reading level continued to progress, there were books that were in, a lower level than I was currently at, but I'd love to go back and reread them.
Okay.
And so my opinion on that is, if you can get them to read, if it's a cereal box, if it's a magazine, go ahead, let
So
them
it could
read
be
it.
something of interest that interests them, whether it's a sports magazine or.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
And, and again, the best case scenario is that they're continuing to push themselves and read and stretch at that slightly higher level than maybe they're comfortable at. But if you can get them to read it all, that's a win in my book.
Okay. All right. That's fair enough. Okay. So we've basically talked about why it's important and how much should be done. But now let's talk about the hard part. The hard part is actually getting our kids to do these things, right? Because we know the last thing they want to do on their summer break is more schoolwork.
Just pick up a book.
So, okay, great. We're not, like I said earlier, we're not talking about taking away their summer vacation. We're talking about implementing just a little bit. I mean, it's no different than their normal chores, right? They have to keep their room clean. They have to make their bed, brush their teeth. Just little activities like that every single day to make it a routine is okay. But when it comes to getting our kids to actually pick up a book and start reading, or I mean, let's just talk about it. I mean, you have some tips that parents can utilize that maybe will help. So let's talk about that.
Okay, great. Yeah, these are a couple of tips that I know we used as parents. I particularly used being home with them over the summer as a parent that I found successful. And the first is make it fun. Make it something that isn't necessarily a chore. Carve out that time for sure. That's what we did with our kids when they were little. We had a set amount of time in the morning where we read and did, usually like a math drill page or something, just again to keep those math facts fresh in their mind. We did that. We did a certain amount of, household chores. Rooms had to be picked up, beds had to be made, laundry picked up off the floor type thing. And then there was always, some sort of a reward. And some days it was, we're going to walk to the park and have popsicles when we come home. It doesn't have to be big and elaborate, but there was some sort of a reward for a job well done. But carving out that time is important, but making it fun as well. One of the suggestions that I would make is creating like a reading corner or a reading nook in your house, because I know as a teacher, teaching both in the lower grades and even in middle school, one of the things that my kids have always absolutely loved is having a specified place in the classroom that was a little bit different. I remember one year I had a camping theme in my classroom and you helped me create a little campfire with just those little kid, they were like $5 at Walmart, I think, the little camping chairs. And they would do anything to go read in that little book nook.
That was a long time ago.
That was a long time ago. And now that I teach middle school and I have a couch in my classroom, those kids would do backflips, do whatever it took to be the one that got to sit on the couch to do their reading for the day. So just having that little specified place, letting your kids, take a couple of blankets and make a reading fort in the house, can be something as simple as that, but that just makes it fun. It gives them somewhere special. And the whole point of that special place is to read.
Okay, so it's important to establish a good place for them to read that becomes habitual, that becomes a habit for them to do that.
Right.
And what about you as parents reading with them?
Okay, so that's actually another one of my tips. Okay. Absolutely. Leading by example is so important. Mm-hmm. And I'm an avid reader, so it was something that I always modeled and continue to this day to model in front of our kids. I love a good book, but carving out that time to read, not just independently and for them, but for you to either read alongside them and read your book during that time, mm-hmm. or to read aloud with them. There is nothing better, especially now that our kids are older. I look back and I cherish those memories of sitting on the couch, with Blake on one side and Brett on the other and reading a good book, even though Brett would, after page one, close the book on me and say, the end. And I'd say, nobody, we're on page one. We're not done yet.
Brett did not like reading.
But he did become an avid reader, over the years. And even when he didn't necessarily love to do it, it was something that we always required.
Yeah.
But yeah, absolutely. Reading alongside and leading by example or reading along with are two really important factors as well.
Gosh, it's so funny thinking about the times that he never did that with me, but I know that he did that with you. Closing the book, you get to the first page and you read the first page and then he closes the book on you. It says the end. And Brett was not the big reader kid when he was younger. He got into it, but he was not the big reader when he was younger. But
interestingly enough, and it was about,
and Blake was just the opposite.
Blake was and to this day, Blake is an avid reader like I am, but Brett eventually did. I think everybody can find something that they love to read. Mm-hmm. And, where Blake was more like me, where he could read the telephone book and enjoy it. Brett, it took a little longer, but by about fourth, fifth grade, he started to find novels written specifically about, kids who played sports.
Right.
And that grew into a love for a really special niche type of book, which was Christian athletes' autobiographies and biographies. Mm-hmm. He really would just devour all of those stories, whether it be, one of the Red Sox players or, a football player, a basketball player. If he could find an athlete of Christian faith that he could read about, he would do it and really love it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
In addition, like I mentioned before, don't be such a stickler that it be, War and Peace that they read every single day. You let it be something fun. And, one of the things that I can remember that you did with our kids, at times when they were younger that was also reading was take on a project, building a birdhouse, baking a recipe if that's their thing, and having them read the instructions to do it. That's still reading. In fact, by Common Core state standards, learning to read an informational text or something of that sort where they're learning to read like an instructional piece is really an important type of reading as well.
Yeah.
So
I do remember times when the boys were younger, maybe mid-teenage years, maybe that sixth, seventh, eighth grade years where we would have stuff. I had projects that I needed to get done in the garage, whether it was putting something together, and I would either teach them how to build the product that whatever it was we were working on, or I would do it while they were reading the instructions to me.
Right.
And that kept them engaged. So that's awesome.
Yeah. And I mean, to this day, we recently moved Blake into his new house and we put some things together, and it was Blake who was able to very efficiently read through the instructions and instruct us on how to go about building, a dresser and a bed and those types of things. Another great tip is utilize the public library system because we don't use it enough. And I'm always shocked in middle school how many of our kids have never even stepped foot in the local public library and don't have a library card. Our libraries do great promotions over the summer where, kids can take home a reading log, and with, so many books, they get to return and show them the reading log, and they get toys and they get prizes and different little things. A lot of them do weekly reading sessions where there'll be a read aloud and one of the librarians will read a book. More geared towards the younger kids, but it's a really great system. I know our kids used to get so excited for our day at the library. And also there's just something cool about being able to go in and pick a book off of a shelf that we just don't do enough today. So I really highly encourage parents to utilize that, take advantage.
Yeah. And I think that you bring up a good point with the library, because I think that is not only a good place for them to go and really, really explore the books that are there and find something that really is of interest to them, but it's also a quiet place that they can utilize to actually sit down and read.
Absolutely.
So they could spend 20 minutes. You could take your child there and you could be reading a book and they could be reading a book for 20 minutes or whatever. And there you go, done. And it's a quiet place. You're not bothered, you're not distracted by stuff in the house, dogs not barking, all that kind of stuff. It's a very quiet place. A lot of kids do utilize the libraries at their schools for homework and doing their studies. So the public library, yeah, it's surprising as far advanced as technology has come when it comes to all those things that we have available to us now at our fingertips, that libraries still exist, but they are still out there, but they are in need of people to actually come in and check out books and utilize them. They have computers in there too. And
a lot of our public libraries, which brings me to my last point, technology, a lot of our public libraries nowadays, if you don't have time, we have a lot of working parents. If you don't have time to take them, you can go online and digitally check out books from a lot of the biggest library systems in the United States, like the New York Public Library System, the Los Angeles County Public Library System. You can actually go online and you can rent digital copies of books for free as well, which is a great option. Additionally, we want to make technology our biggest enemy with our kids today, which in many cases it is, right? When they're just, blankly staring at YouTube. But there are some great benefits, like being able to check out digital books, like the interactive games, primarily geared towards younger kids that you can find online. There are great programs that you can pull up online that will read books to children. And one of my favorite things, thanks to COVID, we have a great catalog online now of famous authors reading aloud their books, and just some famous movie stars, some famous celebrities that will read aloud a book online. You can search those up on YouTube. And even for the older kids, they're really great.
That's it. I didn't know that. I didn't even know that. Well, that's cool. Now, okay. So we've talked a lot about various tips on how to get our kids to get engaged when it comes to the summertime activities of reading, picking up that book, and technology and all that. When I think about getting our kids engaged, I think about and this involves socializing, interacting with other people, but I think about group activities when it comes to reading, like clubs, book clubs that our kids can get
Absolutely.
involved in. That obviously there's going to be there are age appropriate book clubs that are out there that are online, maybe through Facebook or whatnot. But there are those activities out there that kids can also do along with their parents.
Absolutely. We tend to think of book clubs as something for adults, usually middle-aged women, right?
Right.
But they really are great for everybody. And absolutely, if you can get together a group of friends with children around the same age and maybe even of some of the same interests and to, pick a book for them to read, you could even take it a step further and do the reading, especially with the younger kids, and do an activity related to the reading.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, obviously that would be geared more towards the younger kids. They would be more, I think, into that than the teenage age. But book clubs are a great way to get kids to not only engage their mind as far as reading goes, but also socially engage with other people as well. So,
Absolutely. And we say that, but more my girls, but in middle school, I would have a group of girls and they would all share a book. They would all either read it at the same time or pass it along, but they would get super excited. And, most of them are, the teenage rom-coms. It's reading and it's great. And they would get so excited. And it led to some great conversations in class. Like, are you team Conrad? Are you team Jeremiah? Um, but it's reading.
yeah.
It's reading, and they would share it and they would talk about it. So yes, maybe geared more towards the younger kids, but I think we can get our middle school kids and even high schoolers engaged as well.
Cool. One of the most important things you can do as parents, though, is lead by example. So if you're not taking time to read yourself, showing your kids that, hey, this is an activity that mom or dad's going to do right now. Since I'm going to do that, why don't you pick up your book and you can read, and we'll spend 15 minutes reading together our own books. So you need to lead by example. Andrea and I read together. We have a marriage book that we read out of. We read together. Our boys have seen us do that. And it's just, yeah, lead by example. So that's going to be most important, because if your kids aren't seeing you do it, how can you tell them to do it?
Right.
How about, let's talk about one last thing, and then we'll stop right here after this.
Okay.
One last thing is parents, I mean, teachers, when they get to the end of that school year, you just finished up your school year just today. When you get to the end of that school year, talking to kids or setting goals for kids at the end of the school year for them when they come back at the beginning of the year. You know what I mean? Like, you say, hey kids, I'll see you in the fall, but while you're over summer break, I want you, if you can do this and this and this, there'll be a reward when you come back in the fall.
Okay, so absolutely. I require a book in middle school
Okay.
over summer. We do a summer reading book, just one book, not a lot. I've never met a teacher who would not be on board with that. In fact, I always have parents at the end of every school year reach out and say, hey, can you put together a summer reading list? Can you make some suggestions? Absolutely. It's my pleasure. It's my honor to get to do that. I love it. But parents, I have a small little secret for you. There's a lot of things I don't necessarily love about Chat GPT as an English teacher, but if you ask Chat GPT, put in your child, say, what are some book suggestions for an 11-year-old child with a 6th grade reading level, it will print out to you an entire list of suggested books to read. And you can even put in, other books that they've enjoyed reading or genres that they enjoy. And Chat GPT will give you an entire list of books to read. And as a teacher, absolutely, I always reward kids that come back. And so at our school, we do accelerated reader. If they come back and they've got, accelerated reader tests to take at the start of the school year because they've read books over the summer, I always reward with tickets, which goes into our quarterly raffle. Okay. So I've never met a teacher that wouldn't be totally on board with that.
Cool.
So just reach out, parents ask.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, thank you. Thank you for sharing your tips. That's why I wanted to have you here, because you're the expert on it. I'm not. So I think it'd be helpful for you parents out there that have your kids that have started summer break or about to start summer break. I hope this was helpful for you. You can reach out to me. My wife does not have Instagram, but you are more than welcome to reach out to me and ask me questions, and I will make sure I ask her and relay them back to you. I really hope this is helpful. Thank you again for doing this. I know you have your own busy life in the evening but I appreciate you being here. And listen, guys, as always, I do these episodes every other week. I interview a guest every other week. Make sure you go back and check out some of the episodes. There are some episodes in there when it comes to parenting pep talk, where I'm giving you tips and tools and strategies that you can utilize as a parent with your children as they grow up. So, wow, another amazing episode in the books. So much was shared, and I'm truly grateful my guest was able to pour into you to help you elevate your dad game and really dad up. Make sure you bang that subscribe button so you don't miss a single episode. And while you're here, please don't forget to leave me a rating and a review. I always appreciate the feedback. And one last thing, don't forget, your role as a dad is one of the most important roles you have. So if you need a little help or have questions, don't hesitate to reach out to me on my website at daduptribe.com or at my Instagram page at daduppodcast. Until next time, everyone, dad up.